Okay, for your irregular future tense, on page 170, it's just on the other side of your notes there. We always have the regular and then we have irregulars that we have to worry about. For this chapter, we're going to have to worry about 12 different ones. You'll see, though, that 12 seems overwhelming at the moment. We're going to split them up into 3 different little rules, and as long as you know which verbs follow which rule, then it'll be easier to remember it that way. Okay. But your irregular verbs have an irregular stem, so it's different than the infinitive, the original verb itself, which is what the stem is for all regular verbs. But you're still going to use the same regular endings. So the same box that we just looked at with regular future tense endings, you're going to use for regular and irregular verbs. All one box fits all, truly. Okay. And no matter what, though, we're still, for regular or irregular verbs, all the stems will end in an R before we attach those endings to it. Okay. So that rule still applies for irregular future tense. You'll still have an R before you use that same box for all of them. So we have 3 groups, or 3 patterns of verbs. Your book kind of splits them up a little bit differently on page 170, but you can look at page 170 as a extra reference. Okay. I think it's easier for you to remember it in these 3 ways. Okay, so the first group, what you do is you take the infinitive stem, which is the original verb, and it stays the same. What changes is the final vowel. What are vowels? Okay, so that will be dropped completely. So caber is a new verb that's not in your book, but we're going to go ahead and do all 12 together. No sense in doing some now, then coming back and doing some later. Caber is to fit. We did it with the, or we've seen it with the preterite tense when we did the ones that changed the whole stem. But caber is to fit. If we follow the rule for caber and we take that last vowel and drop it, your new stem is C-A-B-R. And then what do you do to conjugate it? Attach your ending. Same ending fits all. Okay, haber is another one that's not in your book. It's a helping verb to have. Just know that we don't use it very often. It's not really to have, because to have is tener, which will come later here. But it's the helping verb, which really there's no true helping verbs in Spanish. But just know, if you see it being used with this chapter, haber is the helping to have. And again, you drop your last vowel. Then these 3 you should know. What is poder? To be able to, or you can do something. Querer is to want, and saber is to know what? Information or have to do something. Okay. So for this first group, these 5 verbs follow that rule. If you notice, you can shorten the rule to drop the last E, because every single one is an ER verb. So you're basically dropping the E from the ending, but you're still keeping that R. So these are the stems that it ends up with. Poder, P-O-D-R, because you dropped your E. Querer, this is one of the ones that have a trilled R, because there's 2 R's together. Okay. Then once you attach your endings, querré, querrás, and you don't have to be able to trill your R's. It's perfectly fine. It's just the extra sound there that the 2 R's make together. And then saber, of course, drop your E, C-A-B-R, S-A-B-R, sorry. So those are the 5 rules. Ignore this for just a second. I'm going to tell you about this altogether, an easy way to remember all these verbs. Okay. So for now, group 1, drop the E, and then you have your stem, then you attach your endings to conjugate. So far, so good? Okay. Group 2, you're still going to drop that last vowel. But if you just drop it, it's going to be the same rule as group 1. So to make it the different group, or to see what these have in common, is you're going to drop that last vowel, but you're going to replace it with a D. So it's not just dropping altogether. Okay. So poner is to what? Put or place. Not to be confused with poder, so be careful, because those 2 are very different rules there. So poner, to put or place, you drop your E and you replace it with a D. And so your stem P-O-N-D-R. Okay. Salir is to leave. Mm-hmm. And so you drop your I in this case and replace it with a D. So S-A-L-D-R is your stem. Tener is to have. So drop your E in this case, replace it with a D. T-E-N-D-R is your stem. Valer, not in your book, you may want to add your meaning there, is to be worth. So if something is worth something, use the verb valer. Drop the E, replace with a D. V-A-L-D-R is your stem. Then you add your endings to conjugate. And venir is to come. And so, again, replace your I with a D. V-E-N-D-R is your stem. So for this one, you drop the last vowel, replace with a D. Is basically the shortened rule there. Okay, so that's group 2. And for this last part, it says that the stem is entirely different, but just don't get confused with what that says. I guess read what's right next to it, which we're going to shorten it. What do you notice happens with these two without me telling you? Decide and hacer.
They switch.
Right. There's no E or C or C or E. So for decide, what does it mean? Say or tell. Okay. It dropped the E and C from the middle, so just D-I-R is your stem. And then I said is to what?
Do or make.
Do or make. And it drops the C and E. So E, C, C, E, both are dropped from both verbs. Okay. So for the stem of I said H-A-R.
So you still use the E to I-E stuff.
You don't use any stem changes that we've done in the present or preterite or any other verbs. Now, every time that we switch tenses, the new rules, that what you're doing here is instead of like doing E to I-E or E to I, things like that, the 3 different rules, you're doing something to the stem. So it's still technically a stem changer in the sense that something changes in the stem, but I don't want you to remember as your present tense, E to I-E, O to U-E, E to I. Your preterite tense, basements, E to I, O to U. So it's totally different. This is every single box changes to all these stems right here, and then you add your endings to add your conjugations on them. We're going to look at something here in a minute that these two technically, easy to remember these two because kind of looks like Dear Harry. Obviously not spelled the same way. But you would take all these stems, change it in every single box, and once you add your endings, do that to conjugate for your future tense verbs. Questions so far? Okay.